My name is Viet Nguyen, and I am the Vice President of PR and Technology here at 5G Americas. I'm pleased to present today at the Virtual Spectrum Forum, the path towards 5G and 6G. And here today, I'm happy to present the U.S. perspective on spectrum and U.S. priorities for our particular Americas region. Just a quick note here. I'm sure most of you already know a lot about 5G Americas, but we are a organization that facilitates and advocates for the advancement of 5G and beyond towards 6G throughout the Americas. On our board of governors, these are the companies that make up 5G Americas. So you see really great wireless cellular companies here, both operators as well as network equipment manufacturers and service providers. Very great group of companies across a wide swath of the industry. And one of the things that we do here at 5G Americas is provide technical leadership to help our audiences better understand key topics around the wireless cellular industry, in particular, items involving spectrum, technology, use cases. You can see those white papers at 5gamericas.org. And in your particular region, we also have our Portuguese and our Spanish sites as well. Jose Otero obviously leading up efforts from the Caribbean and Latin America. So giving you a sense of where we stand in terms of 5G connections here in North America, as of the end of Q4 2023, there were 188 million North American 5G connections, which is really a significant, represents a significant amount of growth over the past year. That's about 57% year-over-year growth from Q4 2022. And that's about 69 million new connections. So pretty significant number, and it's a number that is looking to continue to grow in 2024 as we look to track those numbers. Of course, 5G has grown across the globe. In the U.S. and Canada, there are 17 5G networks that have been commercially deployed. This is a representative here of the amount of 5G network deployments around the world. Latin America, obviously, with a significant number of markets in different countries. Latin America with 40 5G commercial deployments as of June. And as you can see here, there are 316 global 5G deployments around the world, with a small portion of that as global 5G standalone networks, about 40 plus as of the end of November 2023. Looking at 5G's impacts in the United States, the expansion of 5G is expected to contribute significantly to the U.S. economy, with projections suggesting that 5G could enable over $1.4 trillion in sales for U.S. industries by the year 2030. In addition, we're expecting to see the growth of an additional 3.8 to about 4.6 million jobs that come from the growth of 5G deployments. So that's a pretty significant number for the United States alone. In addition, the United States is actually, there's a lot of work with the Department of Defense where 5G is being utilized for defense services as well in a number of different areas. And so the conversation that we have with federal users tends to be a complex and interesting conversation, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the call. One of the areas that the United States is looking at is really our mid-band spectrum. one of the challenges that we face in the United States is that about 60% of all mid-band spectrum is actually dedicated to federal users, and probably about 30 some percent dedicated to unlicensed use, 35% about unlicensed use. And a lot of that, in the 6 gigahertz band. And then there's really a smaller portion, probably about 5%, is actually dedicated to licensed mid-band. So it is an area that we are working with our regulators to identify very specific bands, and obviously the challenges that we face here in the U.S. Are obviously going to be a little bit different than what you may see in your respective markets in the Caribbean and Latin America. To give you a sense of what that looks like here, while this slide is a little bit outdated, it actually the bars across here give you a sort of a visual sense of where we stand. In terms of the amount of currently assigned spectrum and planned future assignments of licensed mid-band spectrum, China obviously sort of leading the world in terms of just making their mid-band spectrum available for commercial uses. The United States only has about 270 gigahertz, 270 megahertz of available commercially licensed mid-band spectrum, with additional plans to bring that up to 450. On the other hand, the United States is the world leader in terms of unlicensed mid-band spectrum available for mobile use. And as I mentioned, a lot of that is in that 6 gigahertz band range. And so there is a little bit of a disparity in terms of in terms of that. And again, as I mentioned, this source actually comes from a little bit of an older report. So disregard that little text box in the lower right-hand side there. But you can actually see here the difference in approach that the U.S. has in terms of how it's addressing its mid-band commercial licensed shortage in regards to other markets and other countries. So the question then really is U.S. spectrum policy harmonized globally or even regionally? And as we have seen recently with the ITU's Work 23 convention, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. We think that there are several bands that were identified there where the U.S. was aligned with the Caribbean and Latin America. In particular, we saw the 3300 to 3400 band as identified for IMT, primarily for mobile service. And then the 36 to 3800 megahertz range was identified. And the US and Canada, along with 15 other countries, ratified that as well. One area, again, on this that may not be on this chart, but that 6 gigahertz range was it was an area that the United States has dedicated previously for unlicensed use, and so sort of not reflected here. One other band that you sort of see here is the 7 gigahertz band, or the 7.0 to 7.1 megahertz range. And what we saw here is that there was a significant number of countries in the Americas region that have identified that for unlicensed use. And so it's a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of that particular range. And then in the 10 to 10.5 gigahertz range, the U.S. did not support the addition of those due to some of the federal regulatory uses that we currently have been identifying in that particular range. So there are a few key bands where there is some good cooperation that from what we've seen, some good harmonization, but there's definitely still some more work to do, and so that provides Work 27 when that comes up in a few years, provides an opportunity for the U.S. to continue to cooperate with our partners in in Latin America and as well as other regions globally. So, in short, one of the key areas, at least a few of the key areas that we're focused on here in the United States, is really focusing on our national spectrum strategy. The NSS was set forth by our NTIA, our National Telecommunications and Information Administration. They are the organization that actually manage the spectrum for federal users. And in that spectrum strategy, it set forth undertaking some studies for some potential IMT uses in bands like 3.1 to 3.45, as well as the 7.1 to 8400 megahertz range. So you're likely to see some additional efforts from the US in those particular spectrum bands in particular. In addition, there is some additional focus on the upper midband spectrum range, particularly in that from the 7 to the 15 range, that we're identifying is really crucial for future 6G deployments and offering a balance between coverage and capacity. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, that 10, and going back a slide, that 10 to 10.5 range already is identified for additional for federal uses. So it's not likely that that we will be looking in that particular range, but the upper midband spectrum range does offer some opportunities for additional harmonization, and so we will continue to look for those sorts of opportunities to deliver in that area. In addition, as we work to extend our collaboration between government and industry and key stakeholders in the U.S., we are also working with additional technologies in regards to AI and technology leadership. We think that AI is having a major impact on our wireless cellular communications sector, and we're seeing a lot of activity in this area, as I'm sure you are also well aware for your particular markets. But AI is definitely leading a lot of this transformational conversation that we are seeing in the telecom space here today. So in terms of the priorities that you're likely to see from the United States, again, the National Spectrum Strategy, the NSS, a significant amount of strategy there. The spectrum legislation to ensure more spectrum and restore the FCC authority. We're working very hard to establish a spectrum pipeline that will provide the private sector more of a pathway to being able to secure the available spectrum necessary so that we can, as an industry, deliver on the services and connectivity for devices, for consumers and businesses in the 5G and as we enter the 6G era. With a focus on, again, the midband and upper midband spectrum as sort of key areas. And one of the things that we're also working on in the United States is really trying to ensure that policies are going to foster technological innovation and leadership. There are a number of key regulatory areas that we're looking at right now in the U.S. And really trying to make sure that our regulators are working with industry, collaborating with industry to understand what types of technologies are going to be sufficient to allow for things such as an open internet in the United States. Obviously, in other markets, net neutrality is a significant issue, and it's one that we are still working through in the United States as well. One other area that has been a real bright spot for 5G technologies overall is fixed wireless access. It is a key technology in helping the United States close the digital divide. Obviously, many of you are no strangers to the idea of fixed wireless access. It's been offered previously in previous generations, 4G LTE as well. The experience that we've seen in the United States, however, is that it is incredibly popular with consumers here in the United States when it is run over a 5G network. In fact, 90% of all net broadband ads in the United States in 2022, and actually in 2023, and carrying over as we're sort of seeing the numbers in 2024, 90% of all net broadband ads in the US were based on 5G fixed wireless access technology. That's a significant number. And so really is driving the demand in the marketplace for that. And so you might sort of ask the question of whether or not consumers are actually feeling that that 5G fixed wireless access is providing them, the service levels that they need. And in fact, what we have found is that according to two leading indicators, one from JD Power and the other from the Net Promoter Score, NPS, that 5G fixed wireless access scores consistently higher in customer satisfaction than other access technologies even. This includes fiber, it includes cable, and mobile as well. So we are seeing some real strong uptake in this technology, and so much so that we anticipate, or at least this chart from Ericsson sort of displays here, we may see 130 million fixed wireless connections at the end of 2020. We saw 130 million fixed wireless access connections at the end of 2023 globally. And the anticipation is 29.5 billion in revenue for operators in 2023. I think those numbers may continue to be analyzed with a forecast of 67.3 billion by the year 2027. And we really see the growth of fixed wireless access connections reaching 330 million globally by the end of 2029. So there's some real bright spots ahead, and some are starting to call 5G fixed wireless access one of the killer use cases for 5G technology. One other area that is real significant for us in the United States, given the fact that we have such a significant amount of federal users utilizing our spectrum, is the notion of dynamic spectrum sharing. And one of the things that we are working with in terms of our regulators and the public is getting them to understand the difference between sort of the 3GPP defined dynamic spectrum sharing, which is really focused on the migration from 4G LTE to 5G and used by one mobile operator, versus dynamic spectrum sharing, or spectrum sharing as a way to be able to utilize the same spectrum between operators. So there are multiple definitions that are going on right now, and you're likely to see a lot more activity happening around this area in Washington, D.C. as we go forward over the next few months or years or so. So right now, there's a lot of effort that's going on to be able to restore FCC's ability to be able to conduct spectrum auctions in the United States. If you have not been following that, there has been the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which manages spectrum for the consumer side. They have not been able to conduct spectrum auctions over the past almost year or so. And so there is some effort on over in Washington, D.C. right now to be able to restore that authority. And we hope that those conversations will continue to go forward, as well as helping to identify sort of a pipeline for spectrum access as we kind of go forward here over the next few years. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Jose or to myself. You can reach us at 5gamericas.org. On our website, you'll also see a significant number of white papers, as I mentioned earlier, and that should help to provide you with the additional information in regards to these issues and more around 5G networks. Thank you for your time.